Welcome to this episode of Optimal Game State. In this video, we're looking at the Chaos Bladeborn Warbands. These are the Underworlds models that have rules for Warcry. In an earlier video, I looked at the rules on how to use these fighters in your Warcry Warbands, so if you want to know more about that, then check out that video. That said, let's get stuck in. First up, Grashnak's Despoilers. This warband is a mix of the classics for the Beasts of Chaos, the Bray Shaming leading a Beastagore and some Ungors. Grashnak compares poorly to a great Bray Shaman. He's 60 points more expensive for 5 more wounds and +1 hit damage to his melee, which makes it about on par with his range attack. The Bray Shaman's most interesting ability is its double devolve, which pulls a nearby target over, so having more health is good, but hardly 60 points good. He does have a pretty amazing quad though. It will do damage equal to the quad value, and on a 2+ will stop the target from activating. But it is a quad, so you can't rely on it. Draknar is a Beastagore. For 35 more points you get 6 wounds +1 crit damage. Not great, but it's nice to have the option to spend a little bit more to make it harder to kill. The Warrior Rune Mark gives him access to a pretty typical charge-like effect. Not something you look for, but handy to have when you happen to have exactly enough damage to kill a target. Gorsh and Morgoth are both Ungors with spears. The normal profile has a shield as well. So here you're paying 5 more points for Gorsh or Morgoth, but you lose 1 toughness, but gain 1 attack. That's actually an upgrade from 1.6 damage to 2.5, which is really good. Ushgor and Gnarl are both Ungor raiders with bows. They cost 10 cheaper, have 2 more wounds, and the only downside is how their bow strength is 3 rather than 4. So they're definitely worth having, especially in a Beast of Chaos warband, but you don't need to take Grashnak if you don't want to. Overall, this Bladeborn warband is a good addition to the roster for Beasts of Chaos warband. Grashnak is probably the weakest of them all as he's so expensive, but all the others give some good options, so you're able to take them as fighters without Grashnak. Magore's Fiends. This warband has 3 Khorne Blood Warriors and a Flesh Hound, with just 2 new abilities. Magore himself is an overcosted aspiring Deathbringer. 15 points more and you get +1 wounds and -1 toughness. That said, his double Demonic Maw ability is very good. It's like a max strength melee attack doing 1/3 damage with the attack dice equal to the value of the ability. With a double 6, that's an average of 7 damage, completely ignoring the target's toughness. I think that option is probably worth the extra cost. Zarkus and Gartok are both Blood Warriors with Gorax and Gorefist, but 15 points more for +1 wound and -1 strength. It's probably better to run these guys as normal Blood Warriors. Interestingly, the Tome Champions does have the names and pictures reversed to how the Underworlds cards have them. I assume the Underworlds version is correct, which is the one I've used here. The skull rack definitely screams Flayskull. Riptooth is a Flesh Hound, but better. Same price, but 2 extra wounds. His triple lets him give a nearby Magore's Fiends a bonus move action, and that does include himself. So if you were to just take Magore and Riptooth, you could use a triple to give both a bonus move action, which is pretty good value. I really like this pair. They both average around 5.3 damage versus T4 targets, so they're doing good numbers. Riptooth is a great fast option for a Chaos Warband and is much tougher than a Chaos Warhound, although at over twice the price you'd kinda hope he was. Magore's ability combines really well with the Blood for the Blood God ability, which is a bonus action on a double after you kill a target. So either you kill it and use that, or you don't and take the extra double as burst damage into the Demonic Maw. Next up we have Garrek's Reavers, who are based on the Blood Reaver fighters, so they're less well armoured than the Blood Warriors. They are notable due to the 5 move, which is pretty nippy. The warband has 4 extra abilities, with the double and quad available to everyone. Ever Advancing is only going to be a little movement push, but it's quite handy to have. The quad is pretty meh, it's hard to compete with the bonus move and attack of Rampage. Garrek is a Blood Reaver champion, but 65 points more, getting 7 more wounds and +1 toughness. Probably not a great deal. His unique ability is a double that will increase his crit damage for the next attack action. That's not great, but he does at least have a lot of attacks, so there's a good chance he will be critting. Karsus and Sake are Blood Reaver champions without the hero rune mark. They get +1 toughness, less wounds, and very different weapon profiles. Sake gets +1 strength, hit, and crit, but loses an attack dice, which unfortunately is a net loss. Karsus is 1 less attack dice, but gets reach 3 out of it, along with a nice AoE triple ability. Targor and Arnulf are closer to Blood Reaver stat line, but cost 15 more, and only get 2 wounds for that. So only really Karsus and Sake are worth it, I think. They offer a tougher stat line over the Blood Reavers without having to use that leader slot. Eyes of the Nine. This list is a mix of Siege Arcanite and Demon lists, and sneaks a blue horror into the Arcanite base options, which is very interesting. Their leader is Vortimus, who is comparable to a Magister. He's 40 points more for 2 wounds, and his max range is 10 rather than Magister's 15, so you're actually looking at a bit of a downgrade. Although the ability isn't unique to him, as he's the only one with a blast weapon, Empowered Bolts is really Vortimus only. Since he doesn't have to move, it's an upgraded version of Rampage due to the attack and strength boost, so it's a nice option to have, but not worth the 40 points I think. Khagra is a Zangor with a Great Blade, but 30 points more expensive for 1 wound and 1 toughness. He does get a triple to boost his damage, but you'll probably end up using your triples elsewhere. Torosh and Narvia are the same, both Garrek acolytes with blades and shield. They both cost 15 points more, and their range attack loses 5 range from 15 to 10, so yeah, definitely pass on those. So far not looking great. Now, the Blue Horror. The Blue Horror isn't normally in the Arcanite's Warband, so this is an interesting addition. They compare to the Blue Horror from the Demons of Siege list with the exact same numbers but 5 cheaper. Where the normal Blue Horrors have a reaction, the Eyes of the Nine Blue Horrors have a double, as they're from a time before reactions. This lets them change into a Brimstone Horror if they've taken any damage. Brimstone Horrors cannot be taken in your list and only come from this ability. They've 1 less crit, 2 less wounds, but everything else is the same. The double is arguably a little bit better than a reaction. It does cost you the ability dice, but you can get some work done with the Blue Horror, and then at the end of your activation, pop them for the Brimstone Horror, who will then get activated later. All in all, not a great set of options for the Eyes of 9. Might be better to run them as their compendium equivalent instead. The Wurmspat. This is a Nurgle Rotbringer warband, so we're expecting hard to kill, and we're already seeing some chunky health pools. Fecula is a Rotbringer sorcerer with 1 more toughness, 1 more strength, 6 more wounds, but nearly doubles the price, being 80 points more. She does have a once per game double that gets an extra range attack, but that's certainly not worth 80 points. Sepsimus is a Putrid Blight King with Sonorous Toxin, but he costs 10 more for 1 more wound, 1 extra crit damage, and 1 less attack dice. That is a downgrade, but he doesn't take up a hero slot. Kulok is a Putrid Blight King with Blighted Weapon at 30 more points for 1 wound, 1 extra attack dice, and for some reason Beast Rune Mark. All 3 are better run as Compendium fighters instead, and this is a clear example of how Move 3 fighters were buffed in the current edition. The Dread Pageant. This Slaaneshi warband is fast, so maybe we'll get some value out of it. Everyone is Move 5 along with some reach and range weapons. Their warband ability is a quad. If you don't need the move, it's a boosted rampage, which is a nice option to have. Vasiliak is a new fighter. His rune marks would make him a Myrmidosh Pain Master, but he's 1 more move, and his spear is more like the Lord of Pain's weapon. For 50 more points, you're getting 6 wounds, reach of 2, 1 extra crit damage. Importantly, you're also getting that 1 move, which is really quite big. He's almost a midway between the 2 options, and seems like a decent addition to the roster. Spiteclaw is a Slangor Fiend Blood, but for 20 more points. You gain 2 wounds and trade the reach of 2 for an extra point of hit and crit damage. It's a decent jump, moving the Fiend Blood's 6 average damage to Spiteclaw's 8. Hadzu is a Bliss Barb Archer. For 15 extra points, she gets +1 attack and +1 crit for the bow, and 4 extra wounds. It's pretty good for the points, taking the range damage from 1.3 to 2.5. Glizette is brand new. Same core stats as the Bliss Barb Archer, but with a spear instead. A little cheaper than Hadzu, trading the bow's range for 2 reach, but more damage at 4.6, making her the most efficient fighter for Slaanesh. So all 4 of the Dread Pageant are actually really worth trying out. Glizette is definitely the standout, while Hadzu is an upgrade. Spiteclaw is actually a bit of a monster, fast and deadly, while Vasiliak isn't too far behind. Spiteclaw's Swarm. Next up, a fan favourite, and with good reason. The Skaven model range definitely needs an upgrade, and these are one of the 2 Skaven Underworlds warbands that have that great new style. They are led by Scritch, who is the greatest, yes. This is a Claw Lord, but 50 points cheaper, losing 1 toughness, 1 attack, 1 strength, bringing the average damage down from 6 to 3.5, but gaining reach at 2. Alternatively, you can think of him as a Claw Leader with 6 extra wounds, 1 less toughness, and tiny less damage. He's now the joint cheapest Skaven hero along with the Claw Leader, Master Molder and Knight Leader. If you're not using Master Molder's ability for beasts, then Scritch is probably your go-to if you want a cheap Skaven ally. Normally you would have done that to get access to lead from the back, but in the recent FAQ that was changed to only +1 attack rather than half the ability value. Scritch is still a great option, and as a Bladeborn leader brings you the rest of his swarm as fighter options. His ability is a resurrection ability, so it's been hit by the recent FAQ, but Skaven and Chaos in general didn't have access to a resurrection ability before. It will only work for Spiteclaw swarm fighters with the minion rune mark, which are the Hungering, Lurking and Festering Skaven. The Hungering Skaven is Clan Rat with 2 extra wounds for 15 points, so you're paying extra so Scritch can use this ability. The Lurking Skaven is a Plague Monk with 1 extra attack, but 1 less crit, which seems to even out, with both doing about 3.33 damage. You also get an extra 2 wounds for the 10 points. Again, this is mostly for the ability. The Festering Skaven is actually just a straight Plague Monk with 2 extra wounds for the same price, so that's really good value. All of those can be brought back with Scritch's triple, which actually gives them a lot of value for their small point increase. This is impacted by the most recent rules update, which means they can't be activated immediately after, but it's still an impressive ability. That leaves Crick, who doesn't have the minion rune mark to get raised. He has the same stat as the Plague Monk Sensor Bearer, but without the rune mark for the triple, and at a bargain 20 points less. It's worth reminding at this point that we are comparing to current profiles, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the profile we're looking at actually sees play. That said, I think Kirk is looking good, although he isn't someone that you can bring back. This warband is long out of print, but if you do have them, there are some great options there for Skaven or just a general Chaos warband. The whole warband comes to about 465 points, and you get 5 bodies. That's something that you can do a lot of work with. I do like Spiteclaw by himself as a single Skaven ally, but you're probably best off taking at least 2 others, probably the Festering and Lurking Skaven, to utilize this ability. Khagra's Ravagers. This warband is one of my personal favourites. They have that classic Chaos Warrior style, along with a sorcerer to back them up. Garrek in particular is rocking that slambo stance with bow weapons. Khagra is an aspiring champion with 1 extra crit, 4 extra wounds, but for 50 points more. Not a great deal, but as she's the leader, if you're outside of Slaves of Darkness, she opens up access to the rest of the warband. Zarshia is a sorcerer with 1 less toughness, 2 less wounds, 1 less ranged, but for 10 less points. Importantly, she's not a hero, so she doesn't take up a hero slot. This also means she misses out on the generic Slaves of Darkness ability of Demonic Power, but she does get her own options. She has a double that does straight damage, on average equal to about half the ability value. She also has a very interesting teleport ability for a triple, so she can pick up any Khagra's Ravager fighter within 12 inches and set them up within 6 inches of herself. That can either be used to put a fighter into base-to-base contact, or could be used to slingshot them across the board. A turn 1 Zarshia double moving will be able to take someone from her battle group and sling them forward, which is pretty impressive. Razak and Dower are both variations on Chaos Warriors, costing 20 to 35 points more, but only getting +1 wound each. Now, it does open them up to using Zarshia's ability, but that's still a lot. Obviously, out of this group, Zarshia is a standout, but she does work better if she has someone else to use her ability on. If it's a Slaves of Darkness warband, that means you can use Dark Kragan as a budget version, but if you're any other Chaos warband, then you'll need to take Khagra, with the pair costing 340, but bringing something pretty rare in her teleport. Next up, Godsworn Hunt. This warband of 6 is quite like the Dark Oath Savagers, but it's actually part of the Slaves of Darkness. They just get all the fun, it seems. 1 magic user leader, 2 fighters with big weapons, 1 with a spear, 1 with a bow, and a doggy. Tedra is another sorcerer equivalent, but this time varies a lot more. For a start, she doesn't have the Mystic rune mark, so she doesn't get access to the sorcerer's buff ability, but she does have her own debuff, which will reduce the toughness of a target. Her attacks are the same, but she's 4 less wounds and costs 30 more points. Now, Enfeeble can sometimes be better than Demonic Power, because multiple fighters can benefit from the reduced toughness of a target, but Demonic Power is a double and increases the strength and attacks, so typically that will win out. The rest of the warband are pretty much variations on the Chaos Marauder with Flail, or the Axe and Shield style line. That Flail is super popular due to its cheap 65 cost. Shond and Grundam do have better damage profiles, but that's at nearly double the cost. For 5 more points, you can get the Chaos Warrior, which has 5 more wounds and toughness 6, along with similar weapons. Jagathra is 10 more, but gets +1 wounds and +1 crit damage and +1 speed. That's actually a really good option for a Slave's Darkness Warband to upgrade the Marauder with Flail if they have the points. Now, Grawl is quite interesting. He compares to the Chaos Warhound, but is 10 cheaper, losing 2 speed and 2 wounds. His attack profile is a lot better, although it's a shame we lose Warhound's reaction. Instead, Grawl gets the Slaves to Darkness reaction, which can heal up to 3 damage if he's about to get hit. Since Grawl is only 6, that can keep him going for quite a while. When I play the Warhounds, I often find they go down fast. Although Grawl is only 6 wounds, his reaction could keep him in the game a lot longer. When he's not getting targeted, he has the option of the Slaves to Darkness double, which would increase his strength by the value for the remainder of the turn. He could get some serious work done with that. Olo doesn't have a direct comparison, however, you look at it, he's pretty expensive. He does have a double which gives Crawl an extra move. Unfortunately, he can't use it on Chaos Warhound, but it's still a pretty good ability. Overall, I can see Grawl making it into a Slave to Darkness list because, well, he's a very good boy. Jagathra is a small cost increase with some benefits and is a nice option along with the Flail. Tedra might be an alternative to a Sorcerer. Being able to pull down a target's toughness down to 1 could be big if you can get 2 or more targets on them. Last up for Chaos, we have the Gnarlspirit Pack, who we went into detail with their preview video. The highlights are that Blackwing can fly, which is unusual, Gorl is great damage for his points, while Lupin and Crimson Kira are notable for their move 5, which is faster than usual. This warband is from the new edition, so they should have been costed for the new current design approach. 2 Chaos warbands have not received rules yet. These are 2 fantastic sets of models, so I'm really hopeful that we'll get those from soon enough. Okay, summary. Almost all of these Bladeborn fighters have a place. The ones that don't have great stats do make great models for the generic fighters. The ones that don't have great stats do make great models for the generic fighters. A lot of the time the profiles are slightly more expensive variants that are a little bit tougher, which can be nice to have as an option. For me though, there are a few standouts. Magore and Riptooth are an extremely cool combo. The Dread Pageant are all good, and Vasilak and Sliklash are fast with great damage, while the other 2 are just good stats. Obviously, Scritch is the greatest, yes, and gets to use that resurrection ability, which wasn't with Chaos before. Zarsha saves the Ravagers, and her teleport is good enough to play premium for Khagra. The Godsworn Hunt don't really offer a lot, but Grawl is welcome in any Slaves to Darkness warband. I'm definitely looking forward to getting these models onto the table, and I'll be watching eBay for the warbands I'm missing. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible 2-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.